So I was thinking, what if there was some kind of class or a course or something like that for people visiting Florida or people who just recently moved here? There sure are a lot of those. A class where we could help teach some basic Florida survival tips, some basic Florida education for visiting here that might make your trip a bit smoother, safer, easier, more convenient. So let's do this. Here's my Florida tourist and new arrival survival guide. All right, let's start with everybody's favorite Florida topic so we can get it out of the way. The weather. Yeah, we all know it's hot here in the summer, but that's the thing. It's pretty much always summer. Aside from those few chilly weeks we get in January, maybe February, it's pretty much a given it's going to be warm, maybe really, really hot. Everybody knows that. But people tend to forget that in the summer, it rains here. It rains here a lot. Something I see all the time on social media and in other places where travelers ask questions about visiting Florida and coming to the theme parks is something like, I'll be in Orlando in July. It won't rain, will it? Or, I'm worried about the weather. My trip is next week and I see the forecast shows an 80% chance of rain every day I'm there. And to that, I say, yes, it probably will rain while you're here in the summer. It will rain. It may even rain every single afternoon while you're here on your Disney World vacation, but it very rarely rains all day in the summer. Well, unless there's like a tropical storm or hurricane, but we'll get to those. We do get these short passing, sometimes pretty intense thunderstorms that quickly come and go. They dump a lot of rain, usually with some gusty winds and some thunder, and then it's back to being sunny again until the next little 20-minute thunderstorm rolls through later on. You might see big thunderheads or see some lightning in the distance, even if it's blue and clear right over you. And if you look at that radar app on your phone, you usually will see these little rain blobs all over the place. That's just summer in Florida. It probably will rain, but it's probably not going to ruin the day. It's not going to ruin your trip. Just roll with it. And since I did say radar app, that's actually a really handy thing to have on your phone. The one I like is called My Radar. The free version has pretty much everything you need, and you can even set it up to give you push notifications if rain is on the way to your location or if lightning was detected nearby. Great app. I have it on my phone, and I have the notifications set up to alert me when weather is going to get bad, and I pretty much recommend everybody around here have that thing on their phone. While we're talking about weather, we're going to have to talk about hurricane season. No getting around it. Hurricanes in Florida are a thing. They are interconnected in the minds of a lot of people. Hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th, but the peak season, that time of year when it really starts to ramp up and storms start to threaten Florida, is from about mid-August to mid-October. So if you're planning your trip here during that time frame, there is a non-zero chance you might have a hurricane interrupting your fun. Now, really though, this isn't really something to seriously worry about too far in advance. Don't completely avoid booking a vacation to Florida in the summer or in September just because there's an off chance we might see a storm. It does happen. We do get hurricanes impacting the state, but on an average, we get a hurricane here about once every 3 years. We actually had a 10-year stretch from 2006 to 2016 with no hurricanes, but it has gotten a bit busier again recently, so, it's something to keep in the back of your mind, but not really something you need to worry about too far in advance. Now remember, I'm talking to Florida visitors right now, those coming down here on vacation. If you live here, hurricanes are a different kind of thing, and you definitely should be prepared to handle one and have a plan. And here's what I think is a pretty weird tip. If you are a theme park person and the parks are still open while there's a storm somewhere else in the state or maybe a day or two out from predicted landfall, you'll see pretty much the lowest crowds and shortest lines ever. The best day we pretty much have ever had at Disney was back in 2019 when it looked like Hurricane Dorian was about to hit the east coast of Florida, and we actually went to Hollywood Studios the day before while they were still open. Almost every ride there was a walk-on, even Tower of Terror and Rise of the Resistance and all those big ones. We just walked right on them. I was even able to get the rare photo of the Millennium Falcon with nobody else around it. The park was practically a ghost town, so that's a silver lining, I guess, and it's a way to kind of milk a fun time out of your vacation if you're here while there happens to be hurricanes somewhere else in the state. Alright, we covered afternoon thunderstorms, we covered hurricanes, and to complete the stereotypical Florida trifecta, It's time to talk about the alligators. Did you know what the secret technique is to finding out if a lake or pond has any alligators in it? Here's what you need to do. Listen to this very carefully. If you want to know if there's an alligator in a pond or a lake, dip your finger or toe in to feel the water. Swish it around a little bit, and is the water wet? If the water is wet, then yeah, there's probably a gator in there. There's a saying that every body of fresh water in Florida, every lake, pond, river, swamp, drainage ditch, probably has a gator in it. No exceptions. What that really means for you is there is no swimming in the lakes here. This isn't like the rest of the country where people swim in lakes all the time. Swimming in lakes in Florida is not really a thing. Not only are there gators, there's also snakes. The water is usually pretty muddy. There's even that brain-eating amoeba thing that lives in the muck at the bottom of some of our lakes. So save your swimming for the pool, the water parks, the beaches, and the springs. The springs are technically fresh water, but those are usually pretty gator-free, and they have a lot of crowds around there, and gators don't tend to like people, so they'll stay away from those places. For the most part. There are going to be some gators in there, but they usually don't really like people, and they will scurry when you get pretty close. And remember, never feed gators. Never ever feed a gator. Feeding them trains them to associate humans with food, which can lead to dangerous encounters with other people later. And then they become a nuisance gator that a trapper might need to be called out to deal with, and they get sent up to that nice little farm upstate, if you know what I'm saying. All right, now we're going to start getting into the Florida beach survival part of our little course here, starting with an easy one. Another animal in Florida that you really don't want to feed is the seagulls. Don't feed the seagulls, people. If you're at the beach laying out under your little umbrella, you might have some snacks with you, and you might be tempted to toss a couple potato chips to that one seagull that's hanging around eyeing you for a handout. But I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't feed the seagulls. What'll happen is you'll give that seagull one chip or one French fry or whatever it is. Seems harmless. And then all of that bird's buddies are going to see it, and they're going to swarm in looking for food too. And then you really don't want to give any of these new birds any food. Don't do it. That will just be like ringing the dinner bell and telling every bird on the beach that the buffet is on at your spot on the beach. Then you're going to get birds swarming and diving and stealing food. They're going to be pooping on you. They're going to be pissing off your neighbors on the beach. It's not a great idea. I've seen it happen. They can get really aggressive. They'll start stealing food out of your hand. Seagulls are actually considered what's called a kleptoparasite. That's one of my favorite words ever, and it means a type of animal that feeds by stealing food from others. Kleptoparasite. It's fun to say, and I think it would make a great name for a metal band. Kleptoparasite. All right, enough of the seagulls. Now we're going to get into some real beach survival tips. This is the kind of thing that might save your vacation, but also save your life. You want to check for the two different kinds of conditions that will affect your beach trip, and that is red tide and rip tide, or rip current as it's sometimes called. One is more of a major annoyance that can ruin a trip to the beach, and the other can be really dangerous. The first one is what we call a red tide, and this one usually tends to be a bit more of a problem on the Gulf Coast, especially along the beaches between, like, say, Naples and Clearwater, but it can really happen anywhere in the state. Usually during the summer, once the water is really warm and the rainy season starts and a lot of fertilizer and other nutrient runoff starts getting carried into the rivers and out into the Gulf, where it feeds a type of red algae called Karenia brevis. And that can cause these really big, nasty algae blooms. This kills lots of fish. It can make the beaches really smelly, causes your eyes to itch in water. It can make you cough and sneeze and just make it really generally unpleasant to be anywhere out near the water. It's a bad time, especially for the poor fish, but it's definitely not the kind of thing you want to spend a day at the beach near either. Now, this doesn't happen all the time, but it does still occur from time to time in certain summers, and it has gotten a bit more frequent in recent years too, just like those hurricanes. So before you plan a day to a Florida beach, it's probably a good idea to check the current status of red tide around the state. I'll put a link in the description to Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission's website that tracks these, so you don't end up making your way out to the beach only to find it's covered in dead fish and you've wasted your day getting out there. The other and more serious thing to be concerned about, though, for you and those of us who aren't fish, is the surf conditions, especially when it comes to rip currents or rip tides at the beach. A rip current is a powerful narrow channel of fast-moving water that flows from the shore out to the sea. It typically forms at beaches with big breaking waves and can pose a serious danger to swimmers because it can quickly pull you away from the shore and out to sea. Spotting a rip current isn't always easy if you don't really know what you're looking for, but if you see a lot of churning, chopping water near the beach that looks a little different than the rest of the water, maybe a watercolor difference in one section of the water, some foam or debris or things kind of getting sucked out to sea in a certain spot, or gaps in breaking waves, that's a pretty good way to tell that there may be a riptide in your area. But the simplest way is just to check the beach conditions. If you see a red flag flying up on the beach, it means no go. Red flag conditions at the beach mean you are not allowed to go in the water at all. I've been to Panama City Beach last summer where a lot of people drowned in just 1 month, and it's a thing again right now. It's gotten to the point where the police are out there giving tickets to people who go in the water on red flag days. So yeah, pay attention to conditions and make sure you understand what to do if you find yourself caught up in one of these currents. And if you're out swimming and you unfortunately find yourself caught in a rip current, it's crucial to stay calm, conserve energy, don't fight the current, let it take you out. It is not going to pull you under, it's going to take you out where you can then swim parallel to the shore, out of the rip current, and then make your way back. If you need to signal for help, wave your arms and yell for help. There may be some lifeguards on duty who can help you out, but the key is to remain calm, swim parallel to the shore, not against the current. That's the last thing you want to do until the current goes away and you're able to make your way back to the shore safely. If you see lightning or hear thunder, get off the beach. Every summer we see a few news stories down here about how lightning struck someone on a beach somewhere. It's one of those predictable news stories we see over and over and over again every summer down here, and it's really too bad and it's really preventable. See, Florida is considered the lightning capital of the United States, with the Tampa Bay area in particular being a really hot lightning spot that on an average year sees more lightning strikes per square mile than any other place in the US. See, they didn't name the hockey team the Lightning for nothing. Florida beaches are kind of funny in that it can be bright and sunny where you are, but there's often this dark, ominous thunderhead just a few miles away spitting rain and lightning. But if you can hear the thunder, you're close enough to get hit. And beaches are prime targets for what they call a bolt out of the blue. They're flat, they're wide open, and when the lightning starts crashing down, usually the highest point on the beach, it's going to be you. So if you start to hear thunder and see lightning, get off the beach. This is Florida. The storm is going to pass through as quickly as it arrived. You can go back to your room if you're staying at a hotel there, maybe wait it out in your car for a little bit, or hang out in a waterfront bar or restaurant. But being out there on the beach during a thunderstorm, it's one of the last places you want to be. And while I'm specifically talking about beaches here, use some common sense here. Golf courses, wide open spaces, out on a boat, those kind of places, all some of the worst places you can be during a Florida thunderstorm. All right, last Florida beach survival tip, I promise. When you're in the Florida waters, you want to get in the habit of doing the Stingray Shuffle, the unofficial dance of Florida. Most Floridians who frequent the beach will tell you that it's not the sharks they worry about, it's the stingrays. These usually calm and chill, flappy bottom dwellers don't want to hurt you. They just want to lay under the sand and find something to eat. But if they get accidentally stepped on, they will lash out with a stinger in their tail that can cause you so much pain and misery it will instantly ruin your trip to the beach, if not your entire week, your entire vacation. So when you're walking around in the water, just try to get into the habit of dragging your feet along the bottom instead of lifting your feet. This kind of tells them to scurry along instead of stepping right on one. Now, I've personally never been stung by a stingray. I've gotten hit by a few little jellyfish, but never a stingray. Knock on wood, I hope it never happens. But I did have a very close call once at Siesta Key Beach in Sarasota, where I forgot to heed my own advice, and I could suddenly feel a very smooth and very slippery stingray fin kind of quickly scoot out from under my foot. Scared the crap out of me, and I was really lucky it didn't get me, but I've seen it happen to others, and it doesn't look like it tickles. So yeah, don't forget to do the Stingray Shuffle, and you should be pretty much okay out there. And while you're spending any amount of time outside in Florida, don't forget to wear sunscreen or some other way to protect yourself from the sun. I shouldn't even have to say this, but come on people, protect yourself from the sun. The Florida sun does not play around. If you're spending a day at the beach, the theme park, you're golfing, boating, or doing anything outdoors for any length of time, use your sunscreen. It can save you a lot of pain later on in the day when you're back home or at the hotel and you're red, you're peeling, you're itching, you're in so much pain, all you want to do is just lay there and do nothing. I've seen so many people at the beaches and pools around here who think they'll just spend a few minutes out in the sun to get a little color, and when you look at them 30 minutes, an hour later, they already look like a cooked lobster. And then their day, their next couple of days, maybe even their entire vacation is ruined. I personally like to go on with the full-on dad look with the floppy hat and the rash guard if I'm out at the pool or at the beach. I've had a few sunburns in the past, and I'm over it. I never want to go through that again. If you're going to be spending any amount of time in Miami, it doesn't hurt to learn a little bit of Spanish or have a translator app in your phone before you head down there. Miami is a very interesting city. It's very dynamic. It's very multicultural. It's really unlike most other places in the US. Some might even consider it the capital of Latin America, and there is a very heavy influence here from places like Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Dominican, Haiti. So much so that English really isn't even the predominant language around here in much of the city. That might be a little bit of an exaggeration, and sure, you will be able to communicate just fine most of the time, but it doesn't hurt to know a little bit of Spanish if you're going to be spending any length of time here. These days, there's even some really good translator apps that you can speak into. It'll translate your words into another language, and things like that can be really helpful. They're helpful really in general if you're a traveler going anywhere where they might speak a different language. Like I said, you'll probably be just fine and able to communicate, and English is spoken most places. It is the US after all, but not everywhere in Miami, especially with some people in the service industry. We were just down here for a cruise, and we needed to speak to a hotel security guard about finding a place to park, and he didn't speak much English. I don't speak any Spanish, so we communicated via one of these translation apps, and that was really helpful. And, hey, he showed me where to park, so it's not a survival tip per se, but he showed me where to park in a really crowded hotel parking lot so I wouldn't get a ticket or get towed. And finally, this is one that's a big sore spot for a lot of people here in Florida. But in Florida, public transportation is usually pretty lacking, so you might need to rent a car, and there's lots of toll roads, and traffic is usually pretty terrible. If you're flying to Florida for your vacation from a place with a really good public transportation system, you might be spoiled into thinking it's like that everywhere, and you might even be thinking you can come down here and just rely on buses and trains while you're here, and you won't need a car. But yeah, I'm sorry, Florida doesn't really have the same robust public transportation system like some cities in the Midwest, Northeast, and Europe do. And if you're coming here and hoping to get around and explore a little bit, you're probably going to need to rent a car, or at the very least rely on services like Uber and Lyft to get around. There is some light commuter rail in places like Orlando and Miami, and some bus services in most places, but the routes aren't really designed with tourists in mind, and it will take you a long time to get anywhere if you rely on those services. It's a sad reality, but Florida is really lacking in this regard, so traffic can be pretty bad in some spots, especially in the bigger cities like Orlando, Tampa, Miami, Jacksonville. But we have a pretty new high-speed train called Brightline that has a route between Orlando and Miami for now. But for the most part, if you want to get around, you're unfortunately probably going to need a car or use Uber and Lyft. Alright, so those are a few Florida traveler, tourist, new arrival, survival tips for Florida. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this. Let me know if you have any you'd like to add. There's probably a lot of you guys with a lot of new experiences out there that you'd like to share that I didn't even think of. And please let the rest of us know about them in the comments. And if you like this kind of stuff, you'd like to learn about fun things to do all around Florida and how to survive your trip to Florida, please like, share, subscribe, tell one other friend about this video. That really helps the channel grow, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.